Hello, 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 hello. I think I'm live in three, two, one. Hello. Hey, this is Jordan Sheridan. I am live in New York. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. Had a good weekend. It is Monday, August 13th. Okay, I see that I'm live on Facebook. I see that I'm live on Periscope and live on YouTube. So we are good to go. And I believe I'm live on Facebook as well. So technology is working, finally. Definitely press the share button. Let's get this out to as many people as possible. Because as you know, these social media channels, which are now I refer to as FuTube instead of YouTube, don't particularly like alerting the masses when independent journalists, progressives, even non-progressives, are live. I have people telling me that they have absolutely no idea that I'm still doing videos because they don't see it, and they're subscribers to my channel. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. But very busy weekend. Obviously, there was a massive protest against white supremacy in Washington, D.C. that Jen Dyes, my business partner, reported from yesterday. So I'm going to play a clip from that. There's some other things going on. The corporate media is infatuated with Omarosa Gate. Omarosa, the former Apprentice contestant, who now is writing a book, and shocker, has come out against Donald Trump, and now President Trump. It's like a food fight on Twitter. Has now dubbed her, what did he dub her? Wacky Omarosa. That's his name for her. So very fun drama going on with Wacky Omarosa versus President Trump. I'm not going to cover that though. Sorry, I think there's bigger fish to fry. So not really getting into all that. There's also a very disturbing story going on in Louisiana. If you don't know, there's a active protest movement of water protectors down fighting the Bayou Bridge pipeline, which is another pipeline brought to you by Energy Transfer Partners, which was the parent company of the Dakota Access Pipeline. And again, press the share button. Let's get this out. YouTube, by the way, this is a super chat. So if you're feeling super, you want to leave a couple bucks, you could do it right there in the live chat. Or on Facebook, I left the links for how you could support my journalism. I would like to get back in the field with Ty, my cameraman, editor, and photojournalist. We need funding to do that, clearly. So definitely, if you can, if you got the means, help us out. And definitely press the share button, because it's really alarming that as subscribers grow, as likes grow on Facebook, and as subscribers go on YouTube, views go down, which means they're actually not sending the videos, which is very frustrating. But all we could do is go live and keep pressing forward and hope for the best. Jamie Kelly in YouTube, yeah, our president has the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. You definitely have bigger fish to fry. Yes, I do. Not interested in covering Trump's food fights with Omarosa. But I want to start. There's definitely stuff to talk about regarding Bernie, the Washington Post editorial board. So the most elite of the elite at the Washington Post is out with an editorial on why we can't have Medicare for all. So they're just, it's kind of like getting back on that bicycle. We know the Washington Post hit Bernie with 16 negative stories during the campaign. So now they're just kind of like getting out the old weaponry against Bernie and Medicare for all, because the Washington Post and newspapers like it is generally run by very wealthy, out-of-touch, quasi-journalists who say they're journalists but never actually do any journalism. They just regurgitate what powerful state government officials, federal government officials, and intelligence officers tell them. But they're telling you we can't have Medicare for all. Can't do it. So we're going to get to that. But wanted to start with the protests that happened this weekend. I wasn't there, but Jen, my business partner, covered it. Let me play a clip from Jen's coverage at the much larger counter protest. I believe there was like 20 to 25 that ended up showing up for the white supremacists, and thousands for the counter protesters against white supremacists. So that is obviously a positive thing, that we're seeing thousands of people show up against hate and bigotry and moving this country backwards. Let me play you a clip. This is Jen speaking with one of the counter protesters Facebook, for some reason, I still haven't figured out how to show visually video clips and stuff like that. So when Ty gets back from vacation, we will work on that. But here we go.
I'm here because I think that this is an incredibly huge threat, and we should be here to say never again. Every time that these racist fascists come out and think that their ideas are legitimate, we need to use our free speech to march in the largest numbers possible and get as many people here as we can.
Yeah, definitely. And I keep asking people the same question. You know, a few blocks from here are the white nationalists in our nation's capital, with the, members of the KKK and neo-Nazis. What do you think is giving them the energy to do what they're doing, to try to put other people down?
Well, first of all, they believe that they have their person in the White House. They think that their ideas are given a platform of legitimacy because people like Trump claim that there's violence on both sides when the Nazis were the ones who killed Heather Heyer a year ago. The fact that they claim to be hiding under the banner of free speech but are incredibly violent and bent on violence. And as long as their movements are able to organize, it's relevant to anyone who is for immigrant rights, who's for Black Lives Matter, who's for union rights, who's on the left in any capacity to come out and organize so that our side can win, because even though they think the wind is in their sails, we're the majority and we're going to win.
That's one of the things too, is it was just a year ago that Heather Heyer was murdered at the hands of white nationalists, yet there are so many people here, so many people are coming together of all colors, shapes, sizes, sexual persuasions, everyone is here standing up despite what happened. Do you think that the side of good will win over the side that's happening at Lafayette Square?
I don't think that's inevitable. Oh no. Well, it's a nice flag. None of that is inevitable. What we've learned from this country's history is that this is something that's been embedded since its founding. This was a country founded on slavery and the genocide of native peoples. It's a country where whenever there's been economic crises, there's been the basis for these ideas of scapegoating and hatred to find a platform and an audience. And unless we organize an alternative that is opposed to all those things and actually points to where in society our problems come from, which in this very unequal society, this very oppressive society, clearly comes from the top, including from people like Trump, we're not actually going to have a basis for winning. So I don't think it's inevitable, but I think the fact that we have such a wonderful turnout, that people don't think we need to be complacent, but that we actually need to stand up, is incredibly heartening, and we need to do it every time they show their ugly heads.
Right, and it seems like you guys all on the side have the same signs. Are you part of a particular group?
Yes, I'm with the International Socialist Organization.
Hell yeah.
Okay, great, and where can people hear more about you guys?
So we have two websites. You can hear more about protests like this and about how to fight the right at socialistworker.org, or you can head to our website, internationalsocialist.org.
Okay, thank you so much. It was very informative. Do you want to?
Well, first of all, can we get a high five for Jen Dyes? That's great reporting from her. She was there for several hours covering the counter protest. And honestly, there was no way to really for her to get over to interview the white supremacists, because the police basically segregated, is the way to phrase it, the counter protesters with the white supremacists. But there was only 25 of them anyway, so not much to interview. But I thought that that woman spoke very eloquently. And I also think that what's so funny is the white supremacists, a lot of them said, and make sure every single person watching share this video. And also, she's not in the chat room. I think she's doing something, but make sure you give a clap for Jen. We want to be able to send more people out than just me to report. We're trying to launch Status Coup, if you don't know. It's coming out soon. There's the logo that you could see. So that's for YouTube could see. I'm going to figure out the Facebook. I don't know why I can't figure out how to get visuals on Facebook yet. But we want to get Jen out in the field. We want to get Ty out in the field. Obviously, I'll be in the field. And eventually, as we grow, get other people out in the field. We're not satisfied simply, bloviating from home. but it takes funding. So all the info's there. You could leave contributions in the super chat if you want on YouTube. Again, it's a super chat. Or you could leave contributions PayPal, which I have the link in there on Facebook. Or you could obviously become a monthly Patreon. That's my preferred method, because honestly, even at $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, it really makes a huge difference, because the more paid subscribers we get, the more good things happen. The more paid subscribers we have, we could then go to get larger funding from progressive sources by saying, listen, we have a community that wants this reporting. We have a community that wants us out covering the stories no one else will cover, but need funding to do it. So I'll obviously plug that a couple times, as much as I could go. Now, I have mixed feelings, honestly, on the protests from yesterday. It might not be popular to say, but I always keep it real. So, hey, Helen on Facebook says $5 a month here. Thank you so much, Helen. Much appreciated. And if you can't contribute, at least press the share button. As you can see, social and digital media suppression is real. I have over 14,000 subscribers on YouTube. Right now we're live to 18 people. It's not a coincidence. And it's not because people suddenly stopped caring about the news. Basically, we're being suppressed at many different levels, which is unfortunate, but is what it is. We gotta roll with the punches, as they say. So, let me change the YouTube headline, which for some reason is still the headline from over the weekend. Give me 1 second. Doing things raw and authentically as normal. Bernie Sanders. Hold on. Bernie Sanders under attack by, shocker, Washington Post. Sorry, folks. For some reason the headline didn't change, so I got to manually put it in while I'm live. But as always, this is not 60 minutes. Hopefully you like it better without being that. So I want to get into my mixed feelings, because as great as I think it is that all these people showed up in Washington, D.C., and I believe there were other places that people showed up. As great as I think it is that people are showing up against visceral hate, against just straight up like KKK, Jim Crow level racism. As great as it is that you had thousands of people coming out versus like 25, and of course these people are hypocrites. They say, well, they don't come out because they're afraid for their safety. Yeah, welcome to being a black person in America. So you, the white supremacists, are worried about your safety, but the black people who are just looking for this radical thing called equality, black people who are looking to leave their homes and not be attacked and shot and killed, black people who are looking not to be discriminated in the workplace against, black people who are looking to, dare I say, not be pulled over and sent into prison for a broken taillight, for unpaid parking tickets. Yes, this is black America. And I'm saying it as a white guy who has spoken with a lot of black people in my day. So the white supremacists say, well, they didn't show up because they were afraid for their safety. Well, maybe you should think about the intimidation, the threats, and the hatred you're putting out that make other people afraid for their safety. So that's what I think about that. But I also have a feeling this feed and the YouTube are not showing the contribution. Check now in the description. The PayPal is there and the Patreon if you'd like to leave a contribution. Thank you, Ruth. And you could also leave a contribution in the super chat, because this is a super chat. So, as great as I think it is, the overt racism, I don't think that's great. The outcry and people showing up against that, I also think we need to keep it real. We need to keep it real. What about the day-to-day systemic economic racism? The day-to-day oppression being perpetrated against African Americans and brown people. I'm not seeing thousands of people. I'm just keeping it real. This isn't like whataboutism. I think it's a great thing that we got all those people out yesterday in D.C. But racism is an everyday thing. And sometimes, because I've seen it, the worst of racism isn't the white supremacists going around with tiki torches, which is very vile and awful, but the day-to-day systemic acceptable racism being perpetrated against black people. And I'll give you a perfect example. All these Democrats, all these resistance fighters out yesterday fighting against these white supremacists who verbally say terrible, hateful things. Do you hear most of them talking about Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, a Democrat mayor who has literally set up a tale of two cities and literally is basically segregating the city to try and push black people out? I was just there. I interviewed organizers. I interviewed activists. I am here to tell you that's what's going on. Thank you, Ruth. $2. You're starting the super chat today. There is economic oppression, which is racism and violence, by the way. I remember I was at Netroots Nation last year when I was at the Young Turks, and there was a march against the awful things we saw in Charlottesville, I believe the next day. And a speaker said, right in front of I forget where it was, but it was in front of a historic area in Atlanta. And she said the economic violence that is being perpetrated against African Americans is racism. And we're seeing that all over the country. It did not start under President Trump. It has certainly, obviously, expanded under President Trump. But the violence that is going on and the visceral oppression of black people is not just coming from card-carrying white supremacists. And unfortunately, I think in our society, especially the Twitterization of our country and our media, people want to focus on the clear antagonist, which is the white supremacists that were marching yesterday, all 25 of them. And let me be clear, I'm not upset about the protest yesterday. I think it was a great thing, and I definitely suggest go check out Jen's videos and Jen's reporting. You can watch, we cut up, I believe, 3 that are up on this YouTube channel now, and it's on my Facebook page. You could watch the whole stream, facebook.com/Jordan Charrett. I think there was some buffering issues, but for the most part, you could see it. I thought she did a great job from what I was able to watch. But we can't just go and show up at rallies where we're fighting against clear boogeymen. Like, for example, there was a protest in Chicago that I covered when I was there. There was a protest, and now it's back to daily life in Chicago. Where is the protest outside Mayor Rahm Emanuel for gentrifying the city? Where are the protests outside Mayor Rahm Emanuel's office demanding he stop funneling millions and millions and millions of dollars into his donors and developers that fill his coffers and start putting some money into the south side of Chicago? Start investing in the south side of Chicago and the west side of Chicago. Start investing in actual education instead of closing 50 schools. I don't see those kind of protests with thousands of people. Not just once. They need to be ongoing. I don't see the Democratic Party going against racism like that, because that is racism. When you make decisions as politicians, maybe you sound lovely. Maybe you tweet out nice things. Maybe you don't sound like Donald Trump. But your policies, like Rahm Emanuel, and it's not just Rahm Emanuel, are racist. Thank you, Rap Brown. $2 from Rap Brown in the super chat. Julie on Facebook says, I agree. Trying to go back and forth between YouTube and Facebook. These policies are racism. So, for example, we were just in Flint again, my 12th time in Flint, by the way. There are 3 to 5 hour lines wrapped around at churches. 4 years after they poisoned the majority of Flint. Flint, I believe, is 57% African American. And there's a hell of a lot of white poor people. So it's not just a black thing in Flint. There's poor people, black and white. Well, in what country? This is the leader of the free world, but over 4 years later, there's still people on lines for 3 to 5 hours. I remember I was there at 11:30 in the morning. The first person I talked to was there starting at 7 in the morning, all to get 2 cases of water. Well, look at the rest of Michigan right now. They found a PFOA problem. I can never pronounce it right, but it's called poroflonactic acids. It's a cancer-causing chemical. They have found that in the water in many parts of Michigan. These are the chemicals used to make things like Teflon and cookware. Well, in other communities, frankly, mostly middle-class white people, holy shit, is Governor Rick Snyder acting quickly. Let me tell you, he is acting very quickly on that. And they are passing out bottled water for those folks, which they should. Middle-class white people who are poisoned should get help just the same as poor black and white people. But, so that's getting immediate attention. That's getting urgent attention. Let me remind you, the media never covered this. Might have been a good thing to tell since he was running for vice president. Mike Pence in Indiana. When he was governor, well, guess what? East Chicago, Indiana, predominantly black and Latina, had a lead crisis that is still currently a crisis. Major environmental calamity there. Lead in the soil, in the water. They had arsenic. They had bacteria. And guess what? Guess what? Mike Pence never went down there, and they have barely started cleaning that mess up. And people that I met there, I've been there 6 times, are sick and getting no help. But when Greentown, Indiana had a water contamination issue, oh, Mike Pence, he got down there lickety-split, fixed in 2 months. That is violent racism. It might not be a white supremacist dropping the N-word. It might not be a white supremacist screaming, we need to go back to the 1950s. It might not be a white supremacist saying, get the hell out of our country, and trying to ban people. And that's my problem with the resistance. It's not consistent. It's easy to be against Donald Trump. It's easy to be against the Republican Party. It's trendy also to be against both. What's not easy is to be against racism in all its forms. What's not easy is to be against imperialism in all of its forms. And that's what America is, folks. We are built on structural racism and oppression. That's what we're built on. I had a conversation with someone on Saturday. She's trying to get into the media. I think she's super smart. And she's having a hard time getting picked up on air. And I told her, because I worked in corporate media, I got news for you. If they have a choice between you, who is not a white woman, and a pretty white girl, most of these outlets are going to pick the pretty white girl. There is systemic racism built into our whole society. So, as great as I think it is for thousands of protesters to come out, I think that is needed. 2 things could be true. I think that's great. Again, I implore you, go check out Jen's reporting. But on the other end, where are the protests in Flint? Where are the protests in Chicago? And we need more than just protests. You want to scream, shut up, Jordan, and beat for the Democratic Party. We need to take out Trump. Okay, so if I do that, if Jimmy Dore does that, and Lee Camp does that, and Kyle from the Secular Talk does that, and all your favorite independent journalists do that, if we just shut up and say, give us the Democrats to retake the House, then what? Is Cory Booker as president going to make things better for black people in Chicago? Kamala Harris? Kirsten Gillibrand? Joe Biden? Hell no. Hell no. The bottom line is, I don't care. I don't care what a Democratic politician says, or if they sound more lovely than Donald Trump. And don't get me wrong, Donald Trump is a stain on America. He is a terrible, He's a terrible person, first of all, and a terrible politician. And he's racist. But all it takes, I've been fortunate to be able to go out into the country. When you go out into the country, you see that the most striking racism and the racism that affects everyday black people, brown people, indigenous people, handicapped people is not the ones from white supremacists going around. It's the daily oppression, economic and social, that is put on by our rigged political system. And that's why I don't just jump on the bandwagon being Trump, evil, Trump, awful, let's get rid of Trump, put Nancy Pelosi back in. I mean, for God's sakes, when Barack Obama, the first African-American president, was president, I mean, I think we had unprecedented levels of police violence that have only gotten worse. He didn't do anything. Barack Obama didn't put in government jobs programs in inner cities, in Baltimore, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Flint, Detroit. I mean, he didn't. Period. So that's what I believe. I think as much as I think it's as great as I think it is to see young people, older people out, I think they need to be out for everything. And they need to see the everyday racism that's going on. I mean, I literally sat next to probably 20 African Americans in a St. Louis jail overnight last year. The stories they told me, it was like you would think this happens in third world countries or like during apartheid in Africa. But it's happening in America, and it's everyday racism. And white people, even most white people are not racist, but most white people have something called white privilege, including myself. Nobody should lie about their privilege. I have white privilege. Everybody who has white privilege, every person who's white, by extension, has some form of privilege, even the most self-aware ones. El Cat Goddess says, no thanks for what you do. By the way, no notice of this live, yet I subscribe. WTFV. Yeah, that's the social media world we're living in, folks. They don't want you to know when I'm live. And I have drummed this. I have told you, click on the bell, click all notifications, which is what YouTube has told me, and it still doesn't work. Fortunately, our Status Quo website should be ready in the next few weeks, and what we're trying to do is we're going to be going live a lot from our website, and we're going to be prompting you to sign up at our website, give us your email, give us all those good things, so we could send you notifications when we're live, so we could send you emails, what we want to cover, where we want to cover it. Of course, we're going to send you emails and alerts saying, hey, this is how you could support us. You could support us right now. Right now, if you're not. You could support us at Patreon. Listen, the bottom line is, we got to be the change we want to see in the world. It's not enough to say corporate media terrible, which I'm about to get to because the Washington Post is at it again. Corporate media terrible. Corporate media terrible. Well, help me create media that you want to see. Obviously, you know my work. Jen, who was just out of DC, I think did great coverage. I have ideas for other people I'd like to join. Ty will not only be behind the camera, we want him to go out and do some reporting. It costs money. So I need your help. You know, there are literally podcasts right now of idiots bloviating, making a crap load of money. Imagine if we could get funding and money for real reporting that could actually expose real injustice, real corruption. So even if you've thought about it, but you've never pulled the trigger, I'm not exaggerating. Even $2 a month, $5 a month on Patreon, and we're going to start adding more stuff in the fall for Patreon members, and we're going to be doing. I'm trying to make it weekly video calls. We just got to make sure we have staffing for that, but I want to do weekly video calls with Patreon subscribers. I want to get your ideas for stories because when I was at the Young Turks, a lot of my ideas came from the viewer. So, but I need your help. I'm not going to lie to you. Patreon growth has been a little sluggish lately, and social digital media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, has been really, really stifling our ability to get live streams out. I've never seen anything like it before. I mean, It's literally, I think my channel is one of the most suppressed channels on YouTube, because there's no way in hell, you are going, you have 14,200 something subscribers, yet are going live to 30 to 50 people. And most of them, when they come in, tell you, oh, I didn't get a alert. Oh, by the way, for Patreon subscribers, you also get my podcast. I'm going to start doing more podcasts, but right now, the podcast I'm doing is just for Patreon subscribers. So you got my podcast. I'm doing video diaries for Patreon subscribers. We're going to be doing weekly calls. So definitely, if you got the means, even at $2 a month, $5 a month, if you're a Patreon subscriber right now and want to bump up your pledge, every amount counts. So, want to move on from the protest, and again, definitely go check out Jen's reporting. I think she did a great job. She was there all day. Then she got, I think it was very difficult to get out of DC. She's from Maryland, so she put in the work. So definitely go check out those videos. I thought they were really done well. And make sure you share this video. So, as you remember, our friends at the Washington Post, apparently they were deathly afraid of everyone having health care. Apparently they're deathly afraid of everyone having health care in America. Apparently they're deathly afraid of people having access to education. Apparently they're deathly afraid of stronger labor unions, higher taxes on the wealthy, meaning them. And they're deathly afraid of basically this country doing what most other countries do. Because most people who write for the Washington Post or the New York Times or any of these places are fairly wealthy elitists who go to cocktail parties and think the most important thing going on is Trump's fights with Omarosa and Russian trolls and stupidity like that. Erica, $5 from California. Thank you, Erica. I appreciate that. Reminding you folks, this is a super chat, so every amount counts. Every contribution counts. And right now, I'm not even making enough for my rent, if I'm keeping it real. So help me live and eat. It's always enjoyable to do both. So the Washington Post and now Politico are basically alternating hit pieces on Bernie Sanders. And when they're done with the Bernie Sanders hit pieces, then they go at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and any real progressives, really. Because they can't stand progressives. Because the Washington Post, Politico, they're all part of the same club with MSNBC and CNN and all these elitists, jerk-offs. That's what they are. They are so out of touch with what real people are going through. And I promise you, if a Washington Post columnist or a Washington Post reporter came with me to where I go and spoke with the people that I speak with, if they have a heart, they might think differently. But the Washington Post, because they'll never, ever, ever report accurately on the progressive movement or Bernie Sanders. Washington Post, this time it's not 16 stories, just one, but their editorial board apparently thinks we can't have Medicare for all. And Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all policy, pie in the sky. Are you shocked? And by the way, I did reports last week on Politico going after Bernie. They had two stories in one day declaring socialism dead and Bernie Sanders' movement dead because every candidate Bernie endorsed didn't win. But now, it's just a continuation, and this is before Bernie even announces if he's running or not. We don't know if he's going to run or not. So, here we go. Headline: The cosmically huge if. The cosmically huge if of Medicare for all. Wow, I can't wait for this. Cosmically huge if. And this is from the editorial board. So, editorial board means all the bigwigs in one room at the Washington Post. This is where candidates go to interview. They go in front of the editorial board at the Washington Post, the New York Times. So this is basically collectively the Washington Post position on Medicare for all. Not one writer or commentator or reporter, the institution. They start, imagine a world in which the rosy assumptions Senator Bernie Sanders makes on behalf of his Medicare for all health care plan turn out to be true. That is what Charles Blahouse, a professor at George Mason University's libertarian-leaning Mercatus Center, did in a paper released last month. He found that the government would expand massively by a whopping $32.6 trillion over 10 years. gobbling up an additional 12.7% of gross domestic product by 2031. If everything went perfectly, millions more people would be covered and receive generous benefits. Oh, how generous to give people health care over that decade, while the country as a whole would save $2 trillion in total health care costs when reductions in private health care spending are taken into account. But that is a cosmically huge if. Cosmically huge if. So right there, before I keep reading, let's go to the narrative that they're framing. They're not talking about what other countries have or how other countries do it or the amount of money we spend in other areas like the wars we spend money on, or the deregulation, or the tax cuts for corporate America, or the subsidies, or name your pick. None of that. And none of those. Have you ever read a story in the Washington Post, the New York Times, or anywhere that starts with imagine a world about endless war, or about the $715 billion defense budget that Democrats just helped pass? No. So let me continue this Washington Post fantasy. Mr. Sanders' bill would move practically all responsibility for spending on Americans' health care onto the federal budget. It would offer health care coverage to everyone with zero copays and extended dental, vision, and hearing benefits to all. The Vermont senator would then impose extreme cost cutting on doctors and hospitals to make the numbers add up, requiring providers to accept Medicare payment rates for their services. Medicare hospital payment rates currently run at about 60% of private insurance rates. Mr. Blahaus notes that the hospitals make up losses on Medicare patients by charging private insurance companies far more. If hospitals and doctors were forced to accept Medicare rates, perhaps some facilities and physicians would be able to generate heretofore unachieved cost savings that would enable their continued functioning without significant disruptions. However, at least some undoubtedly would not, thereby reducing the supply of services at the same time the plan sharply increases healthcare demand. Oh my God. Oh my God. An analysis of an earlier version of Mr. Sanders' Medicare for All plan from the Urban Institute, a nonpartisan think tank, concluded that provider payment rates would have to be substantially higher, significantly raising the national health spending tab. Even then, care shortages would result. For his part, Mr. Blahaus estimates an additional $5.4 trillion in spending if rates are more realistic. That would erase the $2 trillion in savings he projected under the rosiest scenario. Mr. Sanders frequently points to European single-payer program that provides health care to all and spend less per person than the U.S. health system. But these programs have mainly been successful in restraining growth in health care costs, not splashing spending. The Europeans have not found some secret formula to cut healthcare spending from existing levels, which is the keystone of Mr. Sanders' plan. No, that's not true, because I was just in Europe last year, in Germany, and I talked to many people there, as well as experts in healthcare, and that's not true. Healthcare costs are lower, and more people get healthcare. And guess what? Here's this shocking concept. I don't know if you guys know this. Tell me what you think. But when more people have access to health care, when more people could go for preventative care, when's the last time you went for preventative care? When more people can get mammograms, or if you're a man, prostate, whatever, generally speaking, wait for it, less people need health care. Less people need to go to the doctor. Less people need medication. Oh my God, what a thought. What a thought. And it's the same nonsense argument they make against free public college. Because Bernie Sanders, his government plan, isn't saying if you don't want government health care, if you think you're going to have to wait too long, if you think you're going to have inadequate coverage, whatever, it's not going to abolish private health insurance. You could still go to a private doctor if you would like. If you're a doctor watching, you could still practice. But I'm sorry, I have something that they're not going to like to hear. But if you are a doctor, yeah, you should be able to make a living Of course, you went to expensive schools. You went for many years of your life. You sacrificed this and that. But health care should have been a right in the first place, not a method for you to get rich. Healthcare should not have as its underbelly profit and making sure doctors could be as rich as humanly possible. Because if doctors are as rich as humanly possible, in order for that to happen, we need to make sure that people don't have access to full care, and that we make healthcare as unaffordable and unaccessible as possible. But that's not a system that is humane. That's not a system that works for everyone. And by the way, Bernie Sanders' system, you would have more demand. It's not like doctors are going to go into the poorhouse. I know there's doctors in Israel, there's doctors in other countries that have universal health care that are doing quite well. Michael Cooper, doctors here in Germany are doing just fine, by the way. But again, look at the priorities of the Washington Post. Look at the priorities of these editorial boards. Look at the priorities of these journalists. They're laser focused on how much it's going to cost. And Alexandria Ocasio made this point. Laser focused on how much it's going to cost to insure people and what that could do to other sectors of the economy. But it's a given. We don't talk about money when it comes to war. We don't talk about money when it comes to tax cuts. We don't talk about money when it comes to slashing healthcare programs, slashing education, slashing Meals on Wheels. We don't have editorial boards really writing about that, do you? Do you see that? We don't talk about why are we still spending hundreds of billions in Afghanistan? Why are we even in Afghanistan? Why are we spending money to help Saudi Arabia kill people in Yemen? Thank you, Chris Hayes, by the way, who did a nice 2-minute segment on MSNBC about that and got such praise for doing 2 minutes on MSNBC. Why are we spending money on these things? What about the $2 trillion permanent, by the way, unless it's repealed? Boof free. I got a notification about TYT Nation Live, but not Jordan. Oh boy. No comment. Where are the editorials on how are we going to afford that? And by the way, they make all these assumptions in this Washington Post editorial piece. Like, why don't they ever imagine the fact that if more people have access to health care, the more people that have access to health care, especially preventative, we might have less cost for prescription drugs. There might even be, if people get healthier quicker, people, instead of leaning on pharmaceuticals and things like that, more holistic types of approaches. I don't know, call me radical, but I think if people have the ability to go see a doctor, send their kids to a doctor, not only for emergency care, but preventative care, get nutritional programs, get mental health programs, is very important. You want to talk about the mental health problems in America? Well, if I know, because I see a therapist, most good therapists these days aren't even taking insurance and cost a hell of a lot of money. More and more therapists are not taking insurance. I'm sure some of you have dealt with that if you seek mental health care. I got no shame. I've had a very tough year. So I've been seeing a therapist. It helps. But it's just unbelievable to me. And honestly, there needs to be a disclaimer. There needs to be a disclaimer on all of these stories, on all of these columns, on all these editorial board positions, on what the average salary and healthcare package is for the people writing it. I want to know how much, on average, do the people on the Washington Post editorial board make. I want to know, what is your healthcare package, which I promise you, because it's coming from Amazon and Jeff Bezos, Probably pretty good. I want to know if you, at the Washington Post editorial board, if you've had a problem, whether it be autoimmune or something as serious as cancer, how quickly did it take you to get into a doctor? What kind of doctor were you able to see? Let's keep it real here. So because you're more accomplished in the eyes of society and work at the Washington Post, you should have great employer health care. But for other people struggling who might not have a job or work 2 to 3 jobs, or even if they do have a job, their company keeps paying less and less for health care, and what they do get isn't even enough. Those people, sorry, just can't do it. Just can't do it. This isn't that it can't be done. This is the ruling class in this country, which the media is in bed with, don't want it to be done. That's the truth. The ruling class in this country do not want the majority of people to have access to health care. And you know what? Until we as a society say, no, we're not going to accept anymore health care having a profit motive. Sorry, pharmaceutical companies. Same thing with education. Education shouldn't have a profit motive. Everyone should have access to free public college. Just like access to K through 12. You want to send your kid to Yale or a private school? Nobody's stopping you. But because America is an oligarchy and our system is for the continuation of wealth funneling to the top, we're a socialist country already. It's just that the money is spread from the bottom to the top. And spread is a charitable definition of stolen. I always say this to people who say, oh, socialism. Wake up. We live in a socialist country. This is a socialist country. Only the money is being stolen from the middle and the bottom and being hoarded by the wealthy. And I'm sorry. I have a couple friends that are nurses and doctors, and they work very hard, and they work very hard to get to where they are. But I'm sorry. If it means you're going to make a little bit less, you shouldn't have got into healthcare only as your top priority. Money. Because I got news for you. The people who don't have access to healthcare, or do but barely enough, they work hard too. And their outcomes and results in life, they should have an equal chance that you have to getting care, no matter what their job title is, no matter how much money they make. Everybody should have a quality of care, because you either live in a humane society or you don't. I mean, that's the truth. So that's what I think of the Washington Post and their ridiculous story. I mean, I'm going to save it because you can't make it up. And from one awful company to another. For those of you haven't been paying attention lately, Dakota Access Pipeline has obviously been up and running for quite some time now. But now, Energy Transfer Partners, who, by the way, this is an important story too, if you don't know, the Bayou Bridge pipeline in Louisiana, another Energy Transfer Partner doozy. There are water protectors down there fighting against this pipeline. There is a water protector camp down there fighting against this pipeline. Let me show you the Facebook page, because they have put out an open call to try and get more people down there. I don't know the numbers of how many people are down there at the camp now. When I asked for security purposes, they wouldn't tell me, which kind of makes sense. But let me show you the name of the camp. So, if you're down there in Louisiana, or, feel the call, you know where to go. But, hold on. Got too many tabs open. There we go. It's the Leao Est La Vie camp. I'm probably mispronouncing that. The Leao Est La Vie camp. Let me show you what it looks like here. No Bayou Bridge camp. Here's their Facebook page if you're interested. Yeah, Leao Est La Vie camp. Anyway, they just put a call out for more people to come down there, because now Energy Transfer Partners, who is literally has private Blackwater type security, paramilitary contractors that have been terrorizing water protectors from Standing Rock down to the Bayou Bridge. They are now, literally, there were water protectors kayaking at the end of last week in public waterways, not doing anything illegal, and Energy Transfer Partners, private security contractors wearing police hats. They're not police, wearing hats that said police, pulled them out of their kayaks and arrested them. And now, I believe several of them are facing felony charges, because now in Louisiana, ALEC, which is the terrible, what is it, American Legislative Exchange? Some nonsense. It's a radical right-wing group. ALEC is basically paying off politicians to pass laws in states like North Dakota and Louisiana to criminalize protesting fossil fuel projects. It is now criminalized. So, they arrested kayaktivists, pulled them out, and you can see all the photos and video on their Facebook page, arrested kayaktivists who were legally kayaking, and charging them for felony protests against fossil fuel projects. It's insane. Totally insane. Anthony, thank you, $4.99, says, thanks for all you do. Thank you for the support. I know people, when they leave money in the super chat, you're all not rolling in it. So every amount counts. Even $1, $2, $3. The more helps. The more helps. Pronounced low. Okay, thank you, Erica. So we got that going on. Let me read you a little bit about that, actually. This is from Counterpunch. Anti-pipeline kayaktivists hit with felony charges under Louisiana's new ALEC-inspired law. 3 kayaktivists who oppose construction of the Bayou Bridge pipeline, the tail end of Energy Transfer Partners' Dakota Access Pipeline, are reportedly the first people to be charged with felonies under a new Louisiana law that, like a model bill crafted by the right-wing American Legislative Exchange Council, criminalizes peaceful protest of fossil fuel projects. The collective of activists fighting against the pipeline, who have created the L'eau est la vie, Water is Life, floating resistance camp, said on Twitter Thursday that 3 kayakers were abducted by the pipeline company's private security while boating through public waterways and then arrested. Quote, our water protectors were breaking no laws as they were using their kayaks in navigable public waters, a protected right in Louisiana. Moreover, corporate private security should not have the power to abduct and detain people, said the camp. The activist group urged supporters to contact the St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Department to ask why they are letting Energy Transfer Partners henchmen snatch our people and demand that they stop bowing down to Energy Transfer Partners' orders, and noted that although the kayakers were released by Thursday evening, they are facing felony charges. America, where it's a felony to kayak. According to the St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Office Facebook page, which posts daily arrest reports, 3 people were arrested Thursday and charged with, quote, unauthorized entry of critical infrastructure. Unbelievable. And resisting an officer. They weren't officers. They're literally private security, like, mercenaries pretending to be police officers. You can't make this up. This is like out of 1984. One of them also was charged with, quote, interfering with a law enforcement investigation. Oh, my God. Will Parrish, who wrote Louisiana's ALEC-inspired House Bill 727 for the Intercept earlier this year, said the trio is the first to face felony charges under the new law, which took effect August 1st. And here's a picture of 2 of those water protectors who were arrested. As Parrish and Eileen Brown reported in March, after the measures was introduced in the state legislature, the proposed law appears to be designed to intimidate the array of groups working to halt construction of the 163-mile oil pipeline, which cuts through a sensitive wetland where Louisiana's crawfish are harvested. The groups, including the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, Bold Louisiana, and the Atchafalaya Basin Keeper, totally mispronounced, have worked together despite varying goals that range from preserving sensitive habitats and lessening the impact of climate change to defending property rights and protecting the local crawfishing industry. I think it shows how very deeply this industry has our state government by the throat. Sherry Foytlin, a member of the Indigenous Women's Advisory Council for the anti-Bayou Bridge water camp, said of the new legislation. And here you have, like I said, they're calling on, come to Louisiana now. This is an open call for protectors to join us on the front lines. And that is from the Bayou Bridge resistance camp. And I'll read it to you. This is an open call for all water protectors, kayaktivists, radical sailors, and water-going folk to join us on the front lines as we fight the tail end of the Dakota Access Pipeline in the swamps of Louisiana. I should say this is a part of the Dakota Access Pipeline to, quote, energy independence, which is nonsense. They're picking it to export facilities. So, from one terrible story, and we're seeing this all over the country, by the way. All over the country they're doing this. From North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota with Line 3, Pennsylvania they've had this. Basically, oil companies have bought off the police departments. Obviously, President Trump and his administration isn't going to do a damn thing, but frankly, Obama and his administration didn't do a damn thing. They emboldened this kind of stuff. And if you came to this late, I talked about the everyday racism that goes on in America that's put in, not by the white supremacists, 25 of them marching yesterday, but our government. This is everyday racism because literally, you have fossil fuel companies that have bought off our police departments, bought off our politicians to basically terrorize indigenous people and environmentalists. If that's not bigotry, if that's not racism, tell me what is. This is mostly hurting indigenous people and minority communities and vulnerable communities where these pipelines are going through. They're not putting these pipelines through nice, wealthy, white communities. Hell no. We know in Standing Rock, they rerouted it so it wouldn't go through Bismarck, which is 99% white. Yes, share this video to your favorite Facebook groups and Reddit threads. And as a reminder, to show you how suppressed we are, I have over 14,000 subscribers. It takes an hour to get up to 73 live viewers. So that is to show you how delayed the alerts, the notifications, and even the feed showing up for people is. So your support is more critical than ever. Super Chat, patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports, paypal.me/Status Coup. We'll be switching everything over to Status Coup probably by September. We're just waiting for the website to be ready, which our website developer is currently working on. So you got what's going on down by the Bayou Bridge. So now they want to expand the Dakota Access Pipeline because it hasn't already leaked enough times, 5 times that we know of. Might have already leaked under the Missouri River with no way to know because they sure as hell wouldn't report it. Energy Transfer Partners plans Permian Express 3 Dakota Access oil pipeline expansion. Energy Transfer Partners on Thursday said it expects to expand its Permian Express oil pipeline system by up to 100,000 barrels per day and may boost capacity on its Dakota Access crude pipeline. During the second quarter, ETP completed an open season for about 50,000 additional barrels per day on Permian Express 3, which represents the final phase of the 140,000 barrel per day project. The final 50,000 barrels per day is expected to be online later this year, an executive said on an earnings call for this quarter. Flows on the Dakota Access Pipeline that runs from North Dakota to Illinois have averaged just over 500,000 barrel per day recently, and the company said it could expand by another 100,000 barrels per day. Energy Transfer Partner said it is also making progress on the new 30-inch crude oil pipeline joint venture project from the Permian basin to the Gulf Coast that would add at least 1 million barrel per day of capacity. That line is likely to come online by 2020, Energy Transfer Partners said in May. I mean, it's unbelievable. I wish I could say something different, but it's just more of the same. More totally unnecessary pipelines, and now we're going to expand it further. All, by the way, to export. Not used for our domestic use, but to export. So Kelsey Warren at Energy Transfer Partners and Rick Perry, our energy secretary, who was on the board of Energy Transfer Partners right before he was made energy secretary, and then I'm sure Rex Tillerson in his retirement, and all of these fine fossil fuel fuckers could just keep making money at our expense. Legalized bribery, legalized fascism, and the burning of our planet. Which, by the way, if you watched my video on Friday, now the Democratic Party, the DNC, has decided to reverse its 2-month-old ban on taking fossil fuel donations. Couldn't quite make it past 2 months. Bobby Foxglove. Hey, Jordan. First time to catch you live in a while. Love the minimal set. You look great. Thank you for the fine reporting. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it. Just got a haircut, actually, today. And I will be taking off the rest of the week for a much needed vacation. If you haven't noticed, it's been a stressful, I'd say, year for me. So I'm going with my family for a couple days somewhere. I'm going to try and forget the world, so you won't be seeing me the rest of the week. But, obviously if something major happens, I'll try to go live. But I'm going to try to unplug, which is not a normal thing for me. I'm not somebody who unplugs well, but I'm going to try. Definitely going to try. So we'll try to get Sam Oser to go live, Ty to go live when he gets back from vacation, Jen to go live, and I'll be back next week for you. But what's truly remarkable to me, the Democratic Party, their message right now, this is from Terry McAuliffe, former governor of Virginia, who's one of the most corrupt Democrats. McAuliffe, we ought to look at impeachment of Trump. We ought to look at impeachment of Trump. So you either have impeach Trump or the Russian boogeyman, which is coming from half the party. That's their message. When every single day, Trump, the Republicans, frankly, and most of the Democrats are giving the Democratic Party, if they could see the forest from the trees, the message is there. Cover the issues. Fight for the planet. Stop taking the fossil fuel money. Fight the Dakota Access Pipeline. Fight the Bayou Bridge Pipeline. Fight for Medicare for all. Fight for the working people, because I got a secret for you. They're the majority. If the Democratic Party wasn't run by the bourgeoisie, if the Democratic Party wasn't run by idiots who just smell money, that's all they smell, they would see, oh wow, maybe this pipeline thing is an issue that we should capture. Maybe we should stop making money for them because, oh my God, maybe we could fundraise from small dollar donations for people who might want to contribute to us because we're fighting the fossil fuel companies. Why didn't I think of that? Maybe we should, I don't know, stop taking money from these pharmaceutical industries and open up for small dollar donations. Like, I think this guy Bernie Sanders did that and was quite successful and competitive. I think, oh my God, Alexandria Ocasio just did this. Bobby says, when you are self-employed, speaking from experience, it is vital to take some time out to refresh your body and soul. Have a good holiday. This is true. And by the way, I'm going to keep it real. I always try to keep it real. Being self-employed is great, but it gets lonely sometimes. I'm basically like by myself most of the day. I sometimes I like being by myself, but it would be nice to be around like other progressives during the day, like a workspace or something like that. But I don't know if it exists. I don't know if there's like a progressive freelancer / self-employed pit in New York. I got to look into that. But what's just incredible to me is the issues are there for the taking. The issues are there for the taking. The Democratic Party could win millennials, older progressives of all ages, by just doing the right thing. And you know what? They get a lot of money, too. And you know what? What's an even better get out the vote system than just television ads and putting money into television ads and all the old stuff that Hillary Clinton did? Inspiring people, rallying people. That generally works. But The only thing that is going to help the Dakota Access Pipeline expansion, another 100,000 barrels per day, is going to help is Kelsey Warren, Energy Transfer Partners, investors, the banks that invested. It's not going to help anyone in North Dakota. It's not going to help anyone around the country. It's not going to help you or me. It's all going to Poland and China and other countries because Trump wants to compete. Trump actually wants to compete with Russia and Saudi Arabia. He wants the United States to become a much bigger oil exporter. But the Democratic Party is too stupid to fight on the side of the righteous. That would actually bring in money. Nope. LOL, the DNC never learns. Nope. Nope. And then I'm attacked and you're attacked. Jordan, shut up. Stop propping up Trump. Resistance. Well, I got news for you. What the Democratic Party doing right now, if the election were held today and it was not Bernie first Trump, let's say it's Biden first Trump, let's say it's Kamala Harris first Trump, I think Trump would probably win similar margins. I think the Electoral College victory would decrease, but I think he'd win. Because they don't have a message, even though the message is there for the taking. And what they're doing is all identity politics. Oh, they'll be out there. They will rah-rah to the deaths, for counter-protesters against the right to unite. Will they rah-rah protest against the big banks? Hell no. Will they rah-rah water protectors fighting against fossil fuel companies and pipelines? Hell no. Because I remember Donna Brazil sent out a fundraising email titled Mini Wachoni the day Barack Obama denied the final permit. There was not a fundraising email or a mention from the Democratic Party about the Dakota Access Pipeline before that day. So, let's keep it real. Allie says Bernie should run as an independent in 2020. I agree. I don't want him to run as a Democrat. I think he will if he runs. I think he should win as an independent. I think he could have won in 2020. Yeah. I think he could have won in 2016 as a Green Party or independent candidate. I do. So, folks, with that, I bid you adieu. One last time, thank you. People who could leave a few bucks in the super chat. I'm sorry if some people look at it as, begging, but got to keep it real, folks. We need funding. You want me to go cover the Bayou Bridge pipeline? You want me to get out there and cover these issues that no one else will cover? My legs are working. My microphone's working. My legs are somewhat working after physical therapy. I just need the funding. It costs money to do real reporting. It costs money to fly there. It costs money to rent a car. It costs money to have hotels. We need more equipment. We're trying to get a live view, which we need a live view, which allows you to go live and get much stronger signal so we don't have the buffering issues. We need money to advertise and market so we could help get around a lot of this social media suppression. Well, boosting posts and placing ads and also organic social media marketing. We got smart people here. I have half a brain, but Jen has a full brain and a half. But we need your help. Patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. If you don't want to do monthly, you could always leave a one-time contribution, 2 times, 3 times, whatever the hell you want. PayPal.me/Status Coup, and that's Status Coup, which we are very, very adamantly trying to launch. Natalie Williams on Facebook. Shannon Allen, maybe Jordan could help you get your Amazon story out there. Natalie, it's funny you said that because I've been saying to Jen I want to go cover Amazon and go to warehouses and talk to employees because I think Amazon is probably, it's like the Hunger Games, what Amazon is doing to its employees. Costs money. All these things cost money. So there are some companies that have the money and choose not to spend it to send reporters out there. We have the will to do it. We need the money to get out there. Because I believe as a business model, we will succeed. We just need that initial, help to get out there and show people what we're going to do. So that's what we're doing here. And organize a fundraiser, Endo says. We're working on it. We might do a Kickstarter very soon. So, thank you for watching, folks. And like I said, I'll be off the rest of the week, but other people will be coming here. And, Jamie, I'll be joining Patreon. I want to see if there's another way I could help fund with album sales. I'm a singer. From your lips to God's ear. Hey, Jamie, if you don't know, I have said Ty and I are going to do a rap battle once we hit 500 Patreon subscribers. We're doing a rap battle, and the more Patreon subscribers, I'll sing whatever the hell you want. I do a very mean Third Eye Blind karaoke. I've been known to karaoke Whitney Houston in my day. I do have, well, I wouldn't call it a decent voice, but I think it's entertaining. I think. Maybe not. We'll see. So you get the truth here, you get authenticity and bad karaoke. Sell Flint water, Jordan? No thanks. Not for me. Thanks, folks, and have a great week. Bye-bye.